Good evening, my friends. I want to begin tonight with something a little different. I want to give you the answer first. Not at the end, not after a long build-up, not as some dramatic reveal you have to sit through an hour to receive. Right now, in the very first minute before I've said almost anything else, here it is. Stop feeding doubt your attention. Return to your assumption. Do it within 30 seconds. That's it. That is the entire teaching for tonight. Now you might be thinking that's too simple. Surely there must be more to it than that. Surely you've been struggling with doubt for months or even years because the solution is more complex than this. And that thought, that instinct to reach for something more complicated, is itself a product of the very pattern we're dismantling tonight. Stay with me. Because while the principle is simple, truly understanding it in a way that goes beyond the intellectual and settles somewhere permanent requires that we go deeper. We need to look at what doubt really is, why trying to fight it has never worked, and why 30 seconds is the exact window that changes everything. So let's begin. First, I need to show you what doubt actually is, because most people have it completely wrong. Most people believe doubt is a reasonable response to uncertainty, that it is logical, proportionate, even wise. Of course I doubt, they say. I don't have evidence yet. Of course I question, I can't see how it will work. And so they treat their doubt with a kind of respect, even a certain level of deference. They sit with it, they analyze it, they try to answer its questions and address its concerns. But doubt is not a reasonable reaction to lack of evidence. Doubt is the result of a divided mind. Here is what is really happening. When you doubt, you are holding two completely opposing realities in your awareness at the same time. One part of you is saying, I have my desire. It is done, it is mine. And another part is saying with equal conviction, I do not have it. It is not here. I cannot see it. Having and not having, fulfilled and unfulfilled, yes and no, all at once within the same consciousness. And your consciousness, which cannot operate in two places at once, which must eventually choose a state to function from, does what it always does under these conditions. It defaults to whichever reality feels more familiar, more solid, more convincing. And for most people, the physical evidence, the empty bank account, the missing relationship, the body that still hurts, feels more real than the imagined state. So consciousness settles there and you call it doubt. But it isn't really doubt, it is simply the heavier assumption winning by default. This distinction matters enormously, because if doubt is a reasonable response to circumstances, then you have to fix the circumstances before you can get rid of it. You are stuck. You need evidence before you can have faith, but you need faith before you can produce the evidence. A perfect, airtight loop of paralysis. But if doubt is simply divided consciousness, two competing assumptions, one of which you have been unknowingly feeding more than the other, then the solution becomes instantly clear. Stop feeding the wrong one. Now let's talk about why everything you've been trying hasn't worked. When doubt appears, what do most people do? They fight it. They argue with it. They try to reason it into submission. They stack affirmations on top of it like sandbags against a flood. They search desperately for evidence that doubt is wrong, for proof that their manifestation is coming, for signs that the process is working, for any scrap of external validation that will finally quiet the voice. And some days they win these arguments and some days they lose them. But here is the deeper problem, the thing very few people point out. Every time you fight doubt, you are confirming that doubt is real. Think about it. You do not argue with things that have no power over you. You do not barricade doors that pose no threat. The very act of building a defense is an acknowledgement that there is something worth defending against. When you spend 30 minutes in a mental battle against doubt, constructing counter-arguments, repeating affirmations, searching for proof, you are not defeating doubt, you are validating it. You are treating it as a worthy opponent, a real force that requires your attention and energy to overcome. And consciousness, which is always observing what you give your attention to, registers this engagement as reality. Doubt doesn't win because it is strong. Doubt wins because you keep showing up to fight it. This is the trap, and most people spend years inside it, exhausting themselves in an endless cycle. Doubt appears, battle begins, doubt temporarily retreats, doubt returns. Repeat again and again. Fighting doubt is exactly like fighting a shadow. The harder you swing, the more real it seems. So here is the technique. And it's important that you understand not just what to do, but why each part of it is carefully calibrated. The moment doubt appears, the instant you feel that familiar wavering, that undercurrent of, but what if this doesn't work? What if it's not real? What about the evidence? You do three things in quick succession. First, you catch it immediately within about 5 seconds of it appearing. You name it internally, not with fear or frustration, but with calm, almost indifferent recognition. There's doubt, that's all. You don't analyze it. You don't try to understand why it showed up or what it means or whether it has a point. You simply observe it the way you might observe a cloud drifting across the sky. There it is. Second, you dismiss it. Not by arguing, not by explaining why it's wrong, but with a clean, firm, uninterested refusal to engage. Find a phrase that works for you. Not interested. That's not my reality. I don't go there anymore. And mean it with the quiet certainty of someone who has truly moved on. You are not angry at the doubt. You are not afraid of it. You are simply unavailable for that particular conversation. Third, and this must happen within the remaining 25 seconds, you return completely to your assumption, not just thinking positively, not trying to force belief, but returning to the state of the wish fulfilled. Feel it, step into it, let it be real for those 25 seconds with your full awareness. The reality of your desire, alive, present, and already done. Total elapsed time, 30 seconds. Doubt appeared. Doubt found no engagement. Doubt was replaced with the assumption of having, and the seed, before it could take root, withered. Now let me explain why the 30 seconds is not random, why the timing is everything. Doubt is like a seed dropped into soil. The moment it appears in your mind, it is small and without roots. It has no weight, no history, no emotional charge. It is just a passing thought flickering at the edge of your awareness, looking for somewhere to land. But if you give it your attention, if you engage with it, argue with it, examine it, try to resolve it, that seed finds soil, moisture, warmth. Within about 30 seconds of sustained attention, it begins to take hold. It stops being just a passing thought and starts feeling like a real concern. Within a few minutes, it feels like a legitimate issue worth investigating. Within an hour, it feels like truth. This is why you can go to bed feeling certain your desire is done and wake up the next morning wondering why you ever believed it could happen. It's not that your faith was weak, it's that you gave doubt 30 uninterrupted minutes of your attention at some point, and by the time you noticed, the roots were already deep. The 30-second rule exists precisely to prevent that process from starting. When you redirect within that window, when you refuse to give doubt the sustained attention it needs to feel real, the seed falls on concrete. It has nothing to grow in. And it dissolves not because you defeated it, but because you withheld the one thing it cannot survive without, your attention. Let me tell you about a woman who came to me after 2 years of practicing these teachings with almost nothing to show for it. She wasn't careless, she wasn't lazy. In fact, she was one of the most disciplined people I had encountered. Faithful in her practice, serious in her study, genuinely committed to understanding this, but nothing was manifesting. I asked her to walk me through her routine, and what she described was this. Each evening she would enter her state akin to sleep, vivid, emotional, fully immersed. She would feel the reality of the loving relationship she desired. She would fall asleep in that feeling. The session, by every measure, was good. And then the next morning, doubt would arrive, and she would spend the rest of the day trying to overcome it, trying to convince herself, searching for proof, building arguments against doubt's case, cycling through every what if it doesn't work with a responding, but it will work because, exhausting herself in this constant internal courtroom, prosecuting and defending at the same time. 2 minutes in the state of the wish fulfilled, I said to her. 22 hours in the state of doubt. Which state do you think is actually manifesting? She understood immediately. The shock of it was clearly visible on her face. I gave her one instruction and one only. For 7 days, your only job is to catch doubt within 30 seconds and return to your assumption. Not to manifest the relationship, not to understand how it will come, not to look for signs or evidence, just the 30-second rule applied every single time without exception. 3 days in, she noticed something she had not expected. The anxiety was gone, not because she had convinced herself, not because she had found proof, but because she had stopped giving doubt the sustained attention that made it feel real. Her assumption of the wish fulfilled, which she had previously allowed to be constantly interrupted, was finally able to exist without disturbance. Within 2 weeks, she met someone. Within a month, she had the relationship she had imagined. But what she told me afterward, what she said was the real gift, was not the relationship itself. It was the realization that doubt had never truly had any power. It had only ever held the power she gave it. Every single time I want to offer you a reframe that will permanently shift how you relate to doubt. Doubt and faith are not opposites. They are the same force pointed in different directions. Both are assumptions about your reality. When you doubt, you are assuming with conviction, with emotional intensity, with creative power that the thing will not happen, or that you do not have it, or that the process will not work for you. When you have faith, you are assuming with equal conviction that it is done, that you already have it, that manifestation is inevitable. Same creative mechanism, same energy, same process. The only difference is the direction it is pointed. This means, and really feel the weight of this, that doubt is not your enemy. It is not a sign that something is wrong with you, that your faith is weak, that you are somehow unworthy of what you are trying to create. Doubt is simply misplaced creative power. It is the same energy as faith, accidentally directed at the wrong target. And when you practice the 30-second rule, you are not destroying doubt or suppressing it or overcoming it through some act of effort. You are simply, quietly, quickly, and repeatedly redirecting that creative power back to where you want it aimed. Back to the assumption, back to the wish fulfilled, back to the state of already having. There is no battle in this, there is no struggle, there is only the calm, practiced act of noticing where your attention has landed and choosing again to place it somewhere else. That is the entire practice. Now let me give you the 7-day training. Choose one desire, just one. Something specific, something meaningful, something that matters deeply to you, something that doubt tends to visit regularly. For 7 days, this is your only task. Catch doubt within 5 seconds of it appearing. Dismiss it without engaging. One clean phrase, no argument, no explanation. Return to your assumption within the remaining 25 seconds. Every time, without exception. Not unless this doubt feels reasonable. Not unless you think you really need to figure something out. Every doubt, every single time, 30 seconds or less. Keep a simple internal tally if it helps. How many times did doubt appear today? How many times did you redirect within 30 seconds? Not to judge yourself, but to build awareness, to become what I call a doubt hunter. Someone who has trained their perception to catch these seeds the moment they fall, before they ever touch soil. At first, doubt will appear many times each day, maybe dozens. And that is completely fine. That is the training. Each catch, each redirect, each 30-second return is a repetition. And repetitions build new pathways in consciousness. Every time you refuse doubt your attention, you are sending a signal. This is not the reality I live in. This thought does not belong here. By day 3, something will begin to shift. You will notice doubt appearing less often. And when it does appear, it will feel thinner, less convincing, like a voice that already knows it will not be heard. By day 7, something will feel genuinely different. The assumption of the wish fulfilled will have a weight and stability it did not have before. Not because you found proof, not because circumstances changed, but because you have been choosing it again and again over the alternative. And consciousness has registered that choice. Continue for another 7 days and then another, and watch what happens to doubt. Let me describe what the end state looks like. Not the manifestation itself, though that comes, but the inner state that makes manifestation inevitable. After consistent practice of this technique, 2 to 4 weeks for most people, sometimes sooner, something lasting shifts in the foundation. Doubt does not disappear overnight, but it begins arriving with less intensity, less certainty. It starts to feel like a stranger knocking on a door they know will not be opened, rather than a resident who has a key. And then, one day, you notice something remarkable. Doubt passes through your awareness without landing. You see it the way you might see a car pass by a window, and it continues on its way, and you never even reach for it. Your consciousness has been retrained. It has learned through weeks of repeated redirection that the assumption of the wish fulfilled is the only reality you accept. And doubt, starved of attention, denied any ground, withered by consistent indifference, simply stops arriving with the same frequency. You have not suppressed it. Suppression is pushing something down while still giving it energy beneath the surface. You have replaced it cleanly, repeatedly, completely. The new assumption has become the stronger pattern. And when that happens, when the assumption of having becomes your mind's natural resting place, the state it returns to automatically when attention drifts, manifestation is no longer something you are trying to make happen. It becomes inevitable. Because you have made the wish fulfilled the only sustained reality in your consciousness. And consciousness, which always creates from what it most consistently is, has no choice but to produce the physical equivalent of that state. The law is not complicated. It is not selective. It does not require perfection. It simply responds to what you are being most of the time, most consistently. Be in the assumption and allow the law to do what it always does. So here is what I am asking of you starting tonight. Not a dramatic commitment, not a complete transformation of your life, just one simple rule. Doubt gets 30 seconds or less every time it appears, and it will appear as many times as necessary until the pattern is broken. You catch it, you dismiss it without ceremony, and you return to your assumption. That's it. Not forever. Not as a lifelong practice requiring endless discipline. Just until the new pattern becomes stronger than the old one. Just until the assumption of the wish fulfilled becomes more familiar, more automatic, more natural than the assumption of doubt ever was. And when that day comes, and it will come if you remain consistent in these 30 seconds, you will look back and understand something that cannot fully be explained in words. That doubt was never your enemy. It was never powerful. It was never even real in the way it once felt during those long, exhausting hours of fighting it. It was simply where you were placing your attention, and the moment you placed it elsewhere, calmly, quickly, without drama, it stopped existing. 30 seconds. That is all it takes. That is all it has ever required. Catch it, dismiss it, return, it is done. Good evening, this is Never Lectures. Until we meet again in consciousness, assume your greatness. Refuse doubt, it's 30 seconds.